I've been in this town long enough to kind of see a political process or a policy process play out, which is you have program number one, it runs into tough territory, whether for timing or cost purposes. So you cancel program number one and you kick the can down the road by saying we're going to start program number two, in this case, kick it to the private sector. And if indeed there are not cost savings to be had, I'm concerned that a future administration and a future Congress would be faced with the prospect of either canceling human spaceflight by Americans or paying the same kind of cost increases or maybe larger because it's further on down the line. I'd like to ask all three of you to comment on that concern about this potentially being a cancellation of American spaceflight in a two-step process.
Congressman, I think that's an excellent point. There's always a difficulty when programs are extended, and the motivation and the intensity and the passion for the project disintegrates with time, and they become and at the time they exceed their budget by substantial amounts, and then the budgets are cut. Then usually the programs are redefined into a less aggressive program and perhaps eventually into a R&D program. And then each step along the way, they're more subject to cancellation. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that such activities are swimming upstream.
Mr. Armstrong, thank you. I've never been told by the first man to walk on the moon that I've made an excellent point. Thank you. Captain Cernan.
You might not be again either, David.
I'll take that one. Captain.
My feeling in support of what Tom Young and I know what Neil believes in support of the Constellation program is we should take it. We should take it in steps and bounds, leading ultimately to what I'm a guru on is space exploration. That's where I want to go. I want to see us go to Mars. But I think we first have to look at our problems today. And I think if we take a good hard look and review at Ares 1 Constellation itself, and re-review it perhaps, and figure out can we really get airborne in 2015 or 16 or 17, and pick it up, we know we can perform. And we know what funds we're going to have available. Hopefully, they'll still be available. And say we can produce a program in 2015. We won't have to start, or 2016. We will have something that'll access Earth orbit. Of course, we have a problem in the front end, as I said, and that shuttle. Quite frankly, I happen to be one of those believers who said, "How can we terminate the most phenomenal, capable flying machine the world has ever seen, that we've ever designed, built, and flown, and it's just getting into its state of maturity, being able to do the job well, and obviously extremely safely at this point in time from what we've learned. How can we terminate that? We ought to extend into that period of time that we think Constellation will come on board, and take shuttle out to 2015 if that's what's necessary. Now, I don't have control of the funds, Mr. Chairman, so I know there's a problem there, but to keep us in the space game, to keep us in the air, if you will, and then along the way we can decide where we go from there with space exploration. The evolution of Ares 5 as it comes from the success of Ares 1, and to me it's not so important when we get there. But what is important is that we have for future generations a commitment. The direction we take is far more important to me than when we get there.
Mr. Wu's time has expired, but Mr. Young, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I would like just to add a little bit. First off, this is a people-intensive industry, enterprise. And if we save money in a particular area, you can only save money by eliminating people. I mean, that's where it comes from. And if in our commercial crew focus, we fundamentally save the money that's talked about, we'll eliminate NASA workforce as well as some industry workforce. That workforce will never come back. That will be gone forever. So there are a lot of consequences that need to be carefully thought about, as your question suggests, and I would offer that. My only other comment is, early in my life, a previous NASA administrator actually said to me, "Be cautious. That green grass sometimes is poison ivy."
What are we really trying to achieve? And perhaps, can you give me any clarification, any one of you? What are we trying to explore? What are we trying to achieve? What do we hope to get out of it? And I recognize you can't predict these things in advance, but I wonder if you could just quickly each run through what you would say in response to that question if the President called you in and asked you.
Thank you. First, exploration is the principal ingredient in the charter of NASA.
Yeah.
Because I remember because I was one of the few people around that was in NASA on its first day after the act was passed. And as I said in responding to the chairman's question, my priorities were leadership, first, access, second, and third, exploration. Leadership, I think, is critically important because it affects our nation in so many ways. It affects the viewpoint of other citizens in other countries around the world about our country in a very meaningful way. I'd just give one example, if I might. We were, Gene, Jim Lovell, and myself were in a mid-ace trip a couple of months ago, thanking the troops for their service. And while at Incirlik base in Turkey, near the Syrian border, the State Department requested that we go over and visit a local university named Çukurova, third largest university in Turkey, one that had continually been requesting information on NASA's space program, but never have been able to get a speaker. So we were in the area, and they shanghaied us into that job. Unfortunately, the timing was imperfect. 2 days before that resolution on the genocide matter of Turkey of a century ago was passed, and the day before we arrived, the Turkish ambassador was recalled to Turkey, and so now we're going into a big presentation with all the press looking at us, expecting us to explain this international crisis from their point of view. As it happened, our welcome was remarkable. There were probably 4 or 5 times as many people came to hear our presentation than they had seats in the auditorium. So they set up loudspeakers outside so they could hear. They gave us a marvelous, welcome, warm reception, and asked a lot of questions so vigorously that the journalists there never could have the opportunity to ask their questions about the international disagreements. I just point out that, by way of explaining, from the point of view of a foreign national, what we do in space seems to be far more important to them than it is than matters about international differences. It just illustrates the importance of leadership. my second point was access, and of course we can't do anything in space without access, so that's why the second point was what it was. And third was exploration, because our business is getting out to the boundaries of human knowledge and finding out new things which will inspire people to believe that human race can do more than it's now doing, and it can do that better, and it will be important not only to our own citizens, but to people around the world. And for that reason, I pick exploration without saying specifically what and in what order. Exploration by nature is what we should be doing.